Western governments are under increasing pressure to stop the sale of arms to the state of Israel over its war plans in the Gaza Strip. And amongst them is the United States of America that has now suspended one tranche of weapons shipments and supply of bunker-busting bombs to the state of Israel. And even though the United States of America is the largest supplier of arms to Israel, Germany is not far behind. Its strong support for the state of Israel is seen by many as a reflection, in part, of German atonement for the Nazi Holocaust and the Jews. And followed by Germany is Italy, that comes in as the third biggest supplier of weapons to the state of Israel. But let's start with the United States of America, of course. Since the end of the Second World War, the United States has provided more military aid to Israel than to any other nation in the world. In recent years, America's military aid amounts to well over $3.6 billion of weapons and supplies that it sends to the state of Israel every single year. The United States supplies account for at least 69% of the arms imports between 2019 and 2023, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. In the case of Germany, Germany is the second biggest supplier of weapons to the Israeli military. Israel imported as much as about 30% of its arms between the years 2019 till 2023 from German weapons manufacturers. The German arms exports to Israel have surged tenfold in the last year in comparison with 2022, hitting a high of $354 million. And since October, Berlin has said that it has approved the sale of another $275 million worth of weapons and military equipment to the state of Israel. Let's also now take a look at some of the other countries that are exporting military hardware to the state of Israel and have now stopped. First up is Italy. The country was the third largest global exporter of arms to Israel between the years 2019 and 2023. It accounted for almost 0.9% of all Israeli arms, according to SIPRI. In late 2023, Italy said that it had stopped sending weapons to the state of Israel, but some arms exports, with the government later saying that it was honoring the existing orders on the condition that these weapons sent by Italy would not be used against the Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. And then there is Britain. The United Kingdom has said that its arms exports represent about 0.02% of Israel's overall military imports. In 2022, the last full year for which data is available, London had exported $53 million worth of military equipment to the state of Israel. Next up is Canada. The country has not approved any arms export permits to Israel since January. In March, Canada had paused all supplies till it ensured Israel's full compliance with export controls. And then there is Spain. Spain's foreign ministry in February had confirmed that it has not authorized any arms sales to Israel since the Israeli offensive in the Gaza Strip on the 7th of October. And finally, Netherlands, where in February a court had ordered the government to suspend the export of F-35 fighter jet parts to the state of Israel within 7 days, or the risk of serious violation of international humanitarian law. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of how these weapons transfers work and why some of these nations have been reluctant to now send arms to the state of Israel, we're now being joined by Mr. Mikael Walterson, who is a military and a political analyst and also a former officer of the Swedish Army, who's joining us live from Stockholm. Now, Mr. Walterson, this is an interesting bit of statistic that is coming forth, that the United States of America happens to be clearly Israel's biggest supplier of arms and ammunition, and the recent reports that the Biden administration has suspended the transfer of one tranche of weapons to the state of Israel. Are you surprised by this announcement that was made by the Biden administration?
No, since the administration has already warned Israel that they would stop some of the deliveries, and maybe much more than they already have stopped, because the Democratic leadership in the United States has a big problem with their own electorate. And a large part of the Democratic electorate are against support to Israel. So they have to try to tread mildly in the middle ground, both to support Israel and also to appease the anti-Israeli democratic electors.
And, when these nations make these arms transfers and the sale of these weapons, are there any conditions that are put as to how these weapons would be deployed, in this case by the State of Israel? Because the allegation has been that Israel has not taken enough heed on not targeting civilians in the Gaza Strip, which is the reason why many of these nations are now saying that they've at least partially stopped sending weapons to Israel.
The main thing, they haven't, when they did the deals, they didn't talk especially about Gaza, but they said that Israel must comply with the rules of war. And it can always, you can discuss what the rules of war are, but the attacks against civilians in Gaza has been seen by many in the West as a breaking of the rules of war. So it's such a broad definition. So you can decide by yourself if Israel follows the rules or not.
That's of course something that has made a lot of these nations extremely uncomfortable to send more weapons to the State of Israel. Nations such as Canada, for instance, Italy and Netherlands, they've all come out and said that they are putting on hold the transfer and sale of weapons to the State of Israel. Do you think this is likely to become a sort of a trend going forward, so long as Netanyahu is in power in the State of Israel?
Well, the dislike of the Israeli warfare against Gaza has been growing. So if the conflict continues, I believe that it will be harder and harder for Israel to get nations to deliver weapons to them. And if we look, but there are two key countries, and now it's just one key country. The others are so small. But Germany hasn't suspended these arms deliveries, but it has reduced the new permits after the new year. So they don't give any new permits.
Right.
So when the old permits are, the weapons are delivered, they won't be anymore. So it's just the United States that will be the nearly total delivery of weapons to Israel, and everything depends on them.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mikael Maltesen, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.